Hello everyone, how's it going? Today I'm gonna tell you about a show they show us at the planetarium. ¿Qué tal a todos? ¿Cómo están? El día de hoy les voy a mostrar el show que nos muestran en el planetario de las instalaciones de la NASA. Previamente pudimos disfrutar de estas maquetas, pero tuvimos que pagar para poder entrar aquí, así que disfruten del video porque a ustedes les va a salir gratis, pero yo tuve que pagar. Después de pagar la entrada, después de hacer cola, entramos y elegimos los lugares que nos parecía mejor para grabar y mostrarles este video. Así que, damas y caballeros, suban el brillo a sus pantallas y disfruten del espectáculo.
In fact, not right now, but if you were to get up very, very early in the morning, you might be able to catch glimpses of planets too in our sky. Anyone see their house? Yeah. Me neither. Yeah. All right, this is our home planet, and we are not actually going to spend a lot of time here today, simply because we live on planet Earth and we get to see it and hear. Those who said yes, please reevaluate your life choices, because looking directly at the sun is very, very active. In fact, if we take a look at real imagery from our sun, we can see where we have plasma streaming outward across the sun's surface, and even prominences on the Mercury. Whereas Mercury had no atmosphere, it was lacking one, Venus has width, and what we're looking at here is an elevation map of its surface. So what does Mercury look like to you guys?
Like the moon.
Yes, it looks a lot like the moon, and that is because both Mercury is more than just some hunk of space rock orbiting our planet, but that our moon does. We're going to see those craters in a better view. And what shape are most of these craters? Yeah, they're all circular, they're all pretty round, but we have these two craters here that look a little bit different. These are some of my favorite craters because of their unique shape. Those are called Messier and Messier A. And they look kind of funky. This one on the bottom, I think kind of looks like an egg or maybe a football. And Messier A here, I've heard looks like Baby Yoda with the ears and the hover pod. I can kind of see it. But these are formed in a slightly different manner than the rest of the craters on the moon, which is why they look so odd. So go ahead and clap once if you've ever skipped a rock across a pond. Okay, good. So if you were to imagine you are skipping a rock across a pond, but then you look over and in your hand, instead of a rock, you're holding an asteroid, and you look forward and instead of a pond, you are skipping that asteroid across the moon, well, that would be sort of the same situation that formed these two craters. We think an asteroid struck the moon at a very, very low angle, and it skipped just like a rock would across a pond, and then struck once again to form Messier and Messier A. Museum today. So if we were to place it inside of Messier crater here, it would look really tiny. In fact, it would take over 12 of these rocks to reach the rim of Messier crater. So this is a really, really big crater on the moon, and over 50 years ago. And humans have not been back to the moon since then. So do you guys think we should send humans back to the moon? Yes. Yes? I think so too. And fortunately, NASA agrees with me because they are sending people back to our moon with NASA's Artemis program. Yes, because of rust. I can't fool you guys. No, there is rust in the surface. Now, over time, of course, those oceans disappeared, and if you want to know why, you can ask me after the show, but we don't see liquid water on the surface. And this is nicknamed the Grand Canyon of Mars, which I actually think is a little unfair because it's a lot bigger than our own Grand Canyon. If we were to put it on Earth, it wouldn't just stretch across one or two states. This would be able to stretch across the entire continental US. So that is a really impressive size for this canyon. This is absolutely huge. And I'd like to take you guys down to just a little portion of it called Candor Chasma, because I think it's important to see what the surfaces of other planets look like. Because a lot of times when we are thinking of these other worlds, like Mars, we tend to imagine something that's very, very different from Earth. But surprisingly, that's not really the case. When we approach the surface of Mars here, it's going to look quite familiar. A lot of people say that Mars just looks like a desert. I mean, it looks like something we could even find here in the US. And that's because there's a lot of similar processes taking place on the surface of Mars as there are on the surface of Earth. For example, wind erosion, which we can see wind blew through all the sand in these regions, and they formed sand dunes and large mounds of sand called yardangs. So this is a really, really cool desert world. Cool both because it's interesting and because it's about -60 degrees here. So quite literally a bit chilly. Mars is this cold desert world, and it does look surprisingly familiar. And hopefully in the next few decades, we will land people on the surface of Mars so that we can actually visit this world and have scientists step foot on this surprisingly familiar landscape. But until then, Mars will be the only world completely inhabited by robots. And we were talking about how many moons, asteroid, we can see there are quite a lot. In fact, we found over 1.3 million asteroids in our solar system thus far, and the count continues. And when I say a gas giant, that is pretty self-explanatory. Because Jupiter is number one, a giant planet. It is very, very large. You could fit all of the other planets in our solar system inside of this one. And storms too, which appear as a bunch of circular spots. There's a lot down towards the bottom of Jupiter here. And there's also a very large prominent red spot. I'm hearing a lot of guesses in the 70s, but it is now even bringing Jupiter's total to 95 moons. So do we think that in addition to being king of the planets, okay, what number did you guys get? 9,000's a bit high. It is 146 moons. Yeah, we were also added hundreds of thousands of miles across. But on average, they are surprisingly thin. They're only about 30 feet thick. And that means sometimes from Earth, when we look at Saturn from certain angles, it almost looks like these rings just disappear. In fact, when early here, we're going to see that they're not solid at all. That is just an optical illusion. These rings are actually made up of millions of chunks of rocky debris and long ago passed a little bit too close to Saturn. And that moon, once it got too close to Saturn, it passed something called the Roche limit. And that just means, which obviously if you know anything about history or even modern day musicals, you'll know, with its North Pole here almost directly facing the sun. So Uranus literally rolls around the sun. And when I say active, we've got a couple things going on with Neptune's atmosphere. First of all, this is the windy planet. So we have so-called diamond rain inside Neptune's atmosphere. And to explain this a little bit better, Neptune, it's got a lot of pressure in its atmosphere. But basically the reasoning for that reclassification was when we are looking at our solar system here, we can see the orbits of all 8 major planets. And because all of the major planets in the solar system, they are what we call gravitational bullies. And that's that much during our journey. And because of this, that might lead us to believe they're just a matter of perspective in our night sky. But all these constellations sort of break apart when we get farther and farther away, and they all make up just a tiny, tiny fraction of our much larger Milky Way galaxy. So everything that we have seen today so far, and all of the stars in our constellations in our night sky, are just in that little green spot. And if that makes you feel small, then just wait. Because we as humans have kept looking, and we have found even more outside of our own galaxy. galaxies too. And every image that you see here, well, that represents a unique confirmed galaxy that we have found and charted. And what we're looking at here are about the closest 70,000 of these other galaxies. But we have continued to look beyond that, and we have found even more. We have not just found thousands of galaxies, but rather we have found millions of other galaxies. Now every dot that you see is a galaxy, and we can see over 4 million of them in just these sky surveys here. Now we might even notice that our universe is taking on sort of an interest that I haven't really touched on yet. Because I've spent the past 40 minutes talking about the planets in our own solar system, and I failed to mention that we've also found planets outside of our solar system too, called exoplanets. In fact, we have found so many of these exoplanets that we think planets outnumber stars in our universe. So if I were to take all of these galaxies and multiply that number by trillions of stars in each galaxy, and then multiply that number by 2 or 3, that's going to give us a lowball estimate as to how many planets exist outside of our solar system. And that number might make you feel a little bit small or maybe a little bit insignificant. And I can really only give you one of those two things. Because yes, we are absolutely tiny, just a speck of dust in the universe. You are not insignificant. Because out of everything we've found so far, we have yet to find another galaxy like ours, another solar system like ours, and especially another planet like ours. A planet like Earth, which not only can support life, but can sustain intelligent life that is capable of looking up and asking these questions. So you are what makes our planet special, and of course you are what...
Muy bien, ahora la pregunta es, ¿qué les pareció el espectáculo? Se ve muy bien, ¿verdad? Es todo un show de animaciones, un viaje, muy bien, ya saben, cine. Decimos adiós por lo pronto a la teoría del Big Bang y al heliocentrismo. Cuídense mucho, nos vemos en la siguiente. See you next time.